Is Russia's Oreshnik built to wipe out an entire city? And could this new weapon really be designed to eradicate whole urban areas in a single strike? Is Oreshnik a strategic distraction, acting as bait while Russia quietly prepares an even larger and more terrifying nuclear threat behind the scenes? If Oreshnik isn't Russia's most terrifying threat yet, what weapons or programs might still eclipse it in terms of destructive power and strategic danger? Now that Russia has unveiled this hidden missile, does it actually conceal the capacity to carry as many as 36 nuclear warheads? And what would that mean for global stability? Why are experts warning that this missile becomes far more dangerous when configured for nuclear warheads? And how does that transformation change its strategic and humanitarian consequences? Ukrainian analyses have revealed the true destructive potential of Russia's Oreshnik missile, detailing how its design and payload could translate into unprecedented damage if deployed in combat. Tests and fragment studies suggest Oreshnik's conventional submunitions weigh about 50 kilograms each, a mass that helps explain both their kinetic energy on impact and the pattern of damage they leave behind. Those submunitions appear to be solid cast metal ingots rather than sophisticated guided kinetic penetrators, indicating a simpler, and in some ways more brutal, approach to maximizing impact through mass and velocity. Fragments recovered from strikes show that the warheads are made of cast iron rather than higher performance steel or tungsten alloys, a factor that affects how they deform and what kind of damage they ultimately inflict. Experts caution that, despite extremely high re-entry velocities, the overall damage from these cast metal submunitions is relatively modest compared with guided penetrators or modern-shaped charges. In one documented case, a single submunition pierced a roof and continued through 5 floors before finally stopping on the building's first floor, illustrating both impressive penetration and limited controlled destruction. Impact holes left by these devices measured roughly half a meter by half a meter in several buildings, evidence of concentrated kinetic strikes rather than wide-area blast effects. Another recovered submunition penetrated a roof and the first floor and continued down to basement level, underscoring how some of these masses can travel deep into structures before losing momentum. One impact created a crater approximately 2 meters wide and 60 centimeters deep, showing that while some strikes are locally destructive, they do not always produce the large-scale devastation associated with high-yield explosives. How widely the submunitions disperse depends heavily on the altitude at which the missile warheads release them, with release height shaping the spread pattern and ultimately the scale of area damage. Analysts estimate that a nuclear deployment of these submunitions would likely require release altitudes on the order of around 5 kilometers to achieve the intended coverage and sequencing. Raising the deployment altitude substantially increases the coverage area and therefore the overall destructive effectiveness, meaning higher release points can transform many small impacts into a much larger combined effect. Experts warn that a nuclear-equipped Kedr would pose an extreme strategic threat, transforming what might look like a conventional system into a weapon capable of reshaping deterrence and escalation dynamics across entire regions. Analysts say the submunition design could reportedly accommodate nuclear warheads of up to about 10 kilotons each, a yield that, when multiplied across many submunitions, would drastically amplify both blast and radiation effects. Open-source assessments indicate the missile carries 36 submunitions, which are reportedly distributed among 6 separate warheads to create multiple independent destructive elements on a single flight. Some experts claim that 36 nuclear submunitions delivered in a single salvo could devastate a major city completely, producing overlapping blast, thermal, and radiation zones that would overwhelm civil defenses. Ukrainian sources assert that the missile's real designation is Kedar rather than Oreshnik, suggesting a different developmental lineage and possibly different operational intentions than Russian public statements imply. Reporting suggests Kedr is reportedly based on the Russian RS-26 Rubezh missile system, meaning designers may have repurposed an existing road-mobile strategic missile architecture for this new submunition role. Analysts note the missile lacks MIRV capability for independently targeting separate warheads with precise guidance, which limits its ability to strike many distinct targets with surgical accuracy. Instead, those analysts explain, the warheads appear to function as unguided submunition cassettes rather than as precision strike systems, relying on altitude, timing, and dispersion rather than individual guidance to cover an area. Technical descriptions say 6 warheads each contain 6 submunitions, totaling 36 payload elements that would be released in sequence to create a dense pattern of impacts over the target area. Estimates put the launch weight between roughly 1,250 and 3,000 kilograms overall, a range that reflects uncertainty about materials, fuel loads, and the exact payload configuration used in different tests. Current open-source range estimates reach approximately 4,100 kilometers with the missile's present payload configuration, a distance that would give it intercontinental reach from many Russian launch points. Analysts argue the platform represents a deep modernization of older Soviet or Russian missile designs, combining legacy delivery systems with novel payload concepts to achieve new operational effects. Investigators report they found no modern Western or Chinese electronic components on board, implying the designers relied primarily on domestically produced or older generation parts. Circuit boards and chips recovered from fragments were manufactured mainly between 2014 and 2016, a finding that suggests production used components from that period rather than the very latest microelectronics. Those findings contrast sharply with some Russian drones, which have been shown to use newer foreign-made electronics, highlighting divergent supply chains and design choices across Russian weapon programs. Meanwhile, Putin pushed back at European claims that a Russian drone carried out a strike in Romania, dismissing the accusations and framing the allegations as politically motivated or misinformed.
It may sound strange, but just before entering here I was informed that some incident had occurred involving what was allegedly our drone. If you would be so kind as to repeat it to me once again, I would be very grateful. I am speaking without jokes or irony, and I would comment based on what I know.
European countries are talking a lot about this. Why didn't they shoot down the drone that is being linked to Russia, which entered their airspace?
Do you hear me or not? I don't even understand what you are talking about. I was told before entering the hall that a drone had entered Romania. I don't know what kind of drone it was. Tell me, what is being reported in the media?
That the drone is ours. It is being said that today a drone crashed into a residential building in Romania, and in Romania they are saying it was a Russian drone.
Who in Romania is saying it is a Russian drone?
Many in Europe are making such statements.
Many means nobody. Name specific individuals.
Ursula von der Leyen.
Mrs. von der Leyen was not in Romania, was she? She did not examine the remains of this drone. No one can determine the origin of any aircraft until an investigation has been conducted. We know that Ukrainian drones have entered Finland, Poland, and the Baltic states. The initial reaction was exactly the same as now in Romania. Alarm, the Russians are coming. The Russians are attacking. But shortly afterwards it turned out that these had nothing to do with Russian aircraft, but were Ukrainian-origin drones that went off course or were affected by electronic warfare or, due to technical imperfections, entered those territories and crashed there. I think this is most likely the case here as well. But if we are provided with objective data, as we once provided the American administration with information and the remains of drones that attempted to strike one of the residences of the President of the Russian Federation, we simply handed them over for examination. Let them give us the materials. We will conduct an objective investigation, and only then will we assess what happened.
As for the statements by European politicians that they are preparing for war with Russia, that is nonsense. This is being done, allegedly, in connection with Russia's aggressive plans towards Western European countries. This is a lie, a blatant, brazen lie. As Joseph Goebbels used to say back in the day, the more incredible the lie, the faster people will believe it. These are precisely the standards that Western politicians and mass media are introducing into their daily practice. Russia has never had any aggressive intentions towards European countries, and the tragedy unfolding in Ukraine is their doing. It is the result of their policy, because it was they who led to the state coup in Kiev in 2014. They have brought about the current tragedy, and now they are trying to shift the blame, to show that Russia is the aggressive one. No, this is their policy, from the very first step, when they deceived us that there would never be any expansion, that NATO would supposedly not take a single step eastward, right up to the tragedy in Ukraine with the state coup. This is all the result of their policy. Let them not deceive their own people. Russia has never threatened and does not threaten European countries. Everything they do is only to continue the confrontation with Russia and to justify excessive spending from their states' budgets, with dipping into the pockets of taxpayers in European countries.
Ukraine has sent its operators of unmanned systems, unmanned aerial vehicles, to the territory of Latvia. Accordingly, it plans to strike Russian territory. If such launches are recorded by our side, what response can we expect?
All places from which a direct military threat to Russia originates are legitimate targets. Certain contacts with Ukraine are maintained. I will not hide it, but there are no negotiations as such. Although we are ready to talk, we have never refused negotiations. We have not stopped them. We are ready for their proposal. They, the Baltic states, have the means to level Russian air defense bases in Kaliningrad. Russia has all the means to level anyone who tries to do that. I think those in the European Union are right who say that they themselves must determine the negotiator. We do not appoint one for them. When I proposed Mr. Schroeder, I meant that he was a person who could be trusted. Do you understand? They hang all sorts of labels on him there, that he is my friend and so on. Yes, we are friends with him, and why hide it? What is wrong with that? Is that bad? But it does inspire a certain degree of trust. At the same time, despite our friendship with him, he always, and I want to emphasize this, I want it to be known both here and in Germany, he always acted in the national interests of the German people and the German state. We do not determine that. I just offered, for example, Schroeder, or someone like him. It is not our job to determine the negotiator. But naturally, we can decide whether to meet with someone of current Western European politics or not. That is our right. We will see. They have not proposed anyone yet. Whether they will or not, we will also see, as well as whether we need to meet with some politician proposed, or not, whether we can trust him in anything or not. We held talks in Minsk back in the day and signed the Minsk agreements. But now we learn that they were signed in order to buy time, to arm Ukraine, but not in order to resolve all emerging issues by peaceful means, that thing we have always strived for and are ready for even now. Now that is indeed enough. Thank you very much.